The art of naming an episode or a chapter is kind of underrated in my opinion. A lot of people don't really think about it, but it can be really important in either setting up the tone for what you're watching or reading, or just being the punchline to a funny joke. Throughout the years, Fire Emblem has had hundreds of chapters, and I think the way that some of them are named are pretty neat, and deserve some recognition for either being a really good connection to the story of the chapter, or foreshadowing of the gameplay of the chapter. So I wanted to go through every Fire Emblem game, and say what I think is the best chapter in each of them. My criteria for what makes the best chapter title is highly scientific. It's whatever I think sounds kind of the coolest, on top of whether or not it highlights what's in the chapter well, be it named for gameplay or story. So if you disagree with anything in this video, please, don't be the person that gets angry over a video on Fire Emblem chapter titles. Like, that's gotta be a new low for any human being. Though, what does that say about the guy making the video on Fire Emblem chapter titles? It says that you should like his videos and subscribe to his channel, or else he's gonna break into your house and flip all the CDs inside your cases.
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light has some pretty solid chapter titles. A lot of them are just cool ways to refer to whatever place the battle takes place in, such as the Ageless Palace and Oasis of Magic. But my personal favorite chapter name is Chapter 17, Star and Savior, because it has a lot to do with Marth as a character. In Star and Savior, Marth just gets home to his castle in Altia and breaks it free of oppression, but unfortunately, he learns that his mother's been killed and his sister's been whisked off to who knows where. And Marth has a really good bit here, where he recognizes that he has to be a Star and Savior, even though he is only human. And it leads to the title drop happening at the end of the chapter, being a moment that really hits home for Marth's character. They saluted their hero with a thunderous cheer. Glory to Marth, our Prince of Light! Glory to our Star and Savior! Marth smiled down at his people and waved. The great commander's last victory of the day was commanding his tears not to flow.
Well, are you better than me?
Well, I never met you, but yes.
After the first game had such incredible chapter names, the second game really knocks it out of the park. You've got such all-timer classics like Forest Crossroads Battle, or Northern Desert Battle. And, after second Pirate Raid, I have no idea how they could top it. Those bastards have thought of everything. Yeah, Echoes, and by extension Gaiden's chapter names, don't really do anything. They're just a bland way of saying, this is where the battle takes place. Which, in Echoes, is kind of neat, since you know the exact date of every single battle because of how it counts days. It kind of feels more like a historical record, and that's kinda neat, but I'd rather just have chapter names, honestly. So, since I have to pick one, I'll go with 4th Pirate Raid. Cause it's more Pirate Raid than 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, but not too much when you get to 5th Pirate Raid. Now, Fire Emblem 3 through 6 do not have official localizations, so a chapter name I might say could be different from a name you remember the chapter as, just because we played different translation patches. So please, do not turn the comments into a battleground between Disturbance in Augustria and Crisis in Augustria. Thank you. Moving on to Fire Emblem 3, it's actually got some pretty neat sounding titles for its chapters. The Nest of Vice, Graveyard of the Fire Dragons, Return of the Prince. There's a lot of really good ones. But if I had to pick one, I really like the sound of the setting sun of Gra. I just think it's a really cool way to refer to the end of a country, as Gra's people got entirely screwed over by Joel, and then eventually by Hardin as well, and this is their last hurrah. Their Princess Sheena is forced into a position of power due to forces beyond her control, and she doesn't want to be there. She essentially ends the Kingdom of Gra and turns it over to Marth, and I just think that's a really somber note for a nation that's really not that important at all to Fire Emblem 3. This is one of those chapter names I'm picking as the best just because it sounds cool. There were probably more impactful chapters in the game's story, but I just think this one's cool. So I picked it. Plus, it has a really cool CG in New Mystery of the Emblem, and that's gotta account for like 10 points. Genealogy of the Holy War only has 12 chapters, but honestly, all of the names are decent at least. Birth of the Holy Knight's a really good name for a first chapter. Girl of the Spirit Forest, Eldigan the Lionheart, like they're all good, but I think my favorite chapter is Chapter 9, For Whose Sake. It is a very solid chapter for Selip's character, as this is a part of the story where he's getting really sick of being forced to fight, as he's looking at his enemies and not seeing evil people, but people that are forced into fighting, due to either the circumstances of their birth or some power beyond their understanding. But Lewin has to remind him of who he's fighting for whose sake he's going out and battling, and how if he refuses to fight now, it's only going to cause more harm later on. It's a very good chapter title that might not exactly sound like it makes sense when you first hear it. And choosing it to be the name of the chapter where you fight Thracians, who are probably one of the most screwed over people in all of Udraul, is a very solid choice. In fact, this name is so good, Zephiel from Fire Emblem 6 ripped it off for his theme song name. I cannot believe his lawyers let him get away with that. Kings really do just get away with whatever they want. Fire Emblem 5 has a lot of solid chapter names, normally being cool ways to be named after people, like how the chapter with Ced in it is called the Hero of Winds, or how the chapter with Raedric in it is called the Baron in Black. It's just really cool names to refer to people, but my personal favorite chapter is Chapter 5, Mother and Child. It is the chapter where Yvael is forced into arena combat with her brainwashed daughter, and it is one of the saddest scenes in the series, combined with one of the most aggravating scenes in the series because of Raedric's incredible taunting. And it's also kind of a reminder of what Fire Emblem's all about. We have these big armies, these big battles, but who it affects are just mother and child. That simple, especially in Udraul's story, where the plight of the common man is very, very significant to the narrative. It sounds good, it's really sad in context, it's just a really solid chapter name. Fire Emblem 6 has a lot of really cool chapter names. In particular, the ones named after the legendary weapons have a lot of just oomph to them. The Thunder Axe, the Pinnacle of Light, the Silencing Darkness. They all sound really cool, but in my opinion, it comes down to the last two chapters before the end, the Never-Ending Dream and the Ghost of Burn, both of which sound really cool and are really cool in context as well, but I'm gonna give it to the Ghost of Burn. It refers to the fact that Bronya and the burned soldiers you fight in that chapter know that their war is lost. Their king is dead. Their fight is really just over. But even though they are just dead men walking, they will fight to their last breath, even if they are nothing more than the ghosts of Burn. It sounds really cool and really fits for Bronya's last stand. But honestly, it was really close between this chapter and the Never-Ending Dream. They both sound really cool, so pick whichever one you like. I won't think less of you for it. Or maybe I will, I don't know. Fire Emblem 7 might be one of the best in the series at having chapter titles that just sound really cool. False Friends, Imprisoner of Magic, Crazed Beast. It's all really good. But my personal favorite is going to be Chapter 23, Living Legend. First of all, that's just a cool moniker to give someone. Living Legend has that alliteration going for it, you know, LL, it's cool. J. And it's just a really cool thing to have for a character that, if you were playing this game as intended, as a prequel with FE6 in your brain, you're surprised to see alive, as Athos was mentioned in FE6, so him being here is kinda crazy once you learn who Living Legend is referring to. It sounds cool, it's for a very important character to the story of the game, I just think it's my personal favorite. But again, there's a lot of ones that you could really say is the best chapter title in the game, such as Battle Preparations. All-time classic. Sacred Stones has some solid chapter names for the regards of the story context that they're in. Victims of War being the name of the chapter where you have to protect innocents from a giant man-eating spider. Creeping Darkness being the name of a map where you have to fight demons in Fog of War. But my personal favorite is Chapter 18, Two Faces of Evil, as it's the moment where Erica or Ephraim confront Leon directly about the state of what he's done. And there they see the two faces of evil, the Demon King and Leon, with Erica having to accept that the face she once knew is gone forever, and Ephraim having to accept that the face he once knew might not have been as well known as he thought it was. It's a very good chapter for the story of the game, and the name of it goes across really well. I strongly enjoy it, and I don't have a bit at the end here. I feel like I've talked about this chapter more than any other chapter in the series. I've made 2 whole videos on it, and had it be important in 2 character analysis episodes. I've seen enough of this volcano to last me a lifetime. Now, I don't need to give Tellia's Supremacy people any more material to work with, however, I must admit, as a collective whole, Tellia's has the best chapter names in the series, being either just really cool names, or things that actually matter to the story of the game. Path of Radiance has a ton of good ones. Shades of Evil, Without a King, A Moment of Fate being the climactic battle between Ike and the Black Knight, Twisted Tower, they are all amazing. But my personal favorite comes from Chapter 11, Blood Runs Red. In this chapter, it's the first time that you really see the racism theme that the story's going for, as there's a moment where the people of the town that were once so nice and kind talking to Ike and company instantly turn evil the second they realize that Ranulph is among them and that he's a Leguse. So Blood Runs Red could have a lot of meaning. The blood of those innocently killed due to racism in Crimea. It could be a statement on everyone's blood is red, we're all the same on the inside, so why is this racism still happening? Or it could be you, the player's blood running red, when the Black Knight comes out of that goddamn house and shoves the Yolandite directly up your bumhole. There are a lot of meanings for this chapter, but all of them are very good and very poignant. I think it's a solid name. Radiant Dawn continues the trend from Path of Radiance of having a lot of really cool chapter names. You've got Chaos Named, you've got From Pain Awakening, and things like Glory Unwanted and A Gathering Hope. A lot of really solid chapter names, but my personal favorite is One Survives, because by its nature, it sets up a question. Because when you first see the chapter name, you have no idea who this one is or what they're surviving, and then when you get to the chapter prior, you realize it's the Black Knight. Now this might be lost on people who have come into the Fire Emblem fandom more recently, as who the Black Knight is very well known, the fact that he's in Radiant Dawn is well known, but you need to understand I did not come into the fandom recently. I was a child who bought Radiant Dawn when it came out. I had no idea the Black Knight was still alive and that he was in the game. So when One Survives is the chapter name, and then little old me realizes, holy fuck, the Black Knight survives, and then you play as him, it's one of the, actually could be the, coolest moment in gameplay I ever experienced in Fire Emblem to that point. So yeah, this chapter name might just be nostalgia, but it's my video, and I get to choose where my nostalgia goggles go. And they're going on the Black Knight, because he's cool. I have to give Awakening credit. Going into this video, I kind of forgot how good a lot of chapter names are. Right off the bat, you've got early ones like Unwelcome Change and The Verge of History that sound really cool, and later on you've got The Sword or the Knee. It's all a lot of really good ones. I could go with Invisible Ties, because it's the name of the Premonition chapter before the game starts, and then you get to the actual chapter much later and you're like, oh no. But honestly, this was a done deal from the start. The best chapter name in the game is Emerin. No title, no anything, just Emerin. Because the game knows Emerin's suicide is incredibly impactful. All this chapter name needs to tell you is Emerin. And honestly, given how much her suicide changes everything in the game, when it happens, years after it happens, it's the perfect chapter name. Because it also fills the player with dread, because you know that Emerin's captured, and when the chapter's named after her, you can kinda feel in your gut that she's gonna go down, even if you didn't know anything about Fire Emblem and its history of killing family members to the lords. Though the only problem with it is the most popular song from Awakening is Don't Speak Her Name, and yet this chapter name is her name. I am getting conflicting messaging on whether or not I should say her name. Fates is a bit of a step back from Awakening in terms of the quality of chapter titles, but it still has some good ones. All of the routes really like the chapters that are just named after the person you fight there. Leo, Xander, King Garen, Sakura, Ryoma, Anakos. Like, yeah, they don't hit quite as hard as Emerin, but they still get the job done. But if I had to pick a favorite, I'm going to go with the Empty King from Conquest, because it does have a pretty neat double meaning. The obvious meaning for Conquest players is that it's referring to Garen, and how he's nothing more than an empty shell. But for those that know the true story to Fates, the Empty King can also be referring to Anankos, the Valen Dragon King who's gone mad through years of degeneration. That little double meaning that can't even make sense to Conquest players unless they also have Revelation is kinda neat. It's cute. I like it. I think it's a good title. Three Houses, again, has a lot of good ones across all of its possible route splits. I really like Mutiny in the Mist and Rumors of a Reaper, and there's also some good ones post-time skip as well, like the Rose-Colored River and the King Without a Kingdom. There's some good options to pick from, but if I had to choose, I'm gonna go with the Blood of the Eagle and Lion. It's a bit of a basic pick, but I do like how it calls back to the Mock Battles title, Field of the Eagle and Lion, and just makes it more clear that this isn't your carefree school days anymore, with Blood of the Eagle and Lion being where quite a few students will canonically die if you don't have them recruited. I think it's a solid callback, and it also just stands on its own. I think it does a really good job setting the tone for what you're about to do. And I'm just letting you know, if any of you killed Raphael, I'm going to break into your house and make you feel unsafe. And lastly, that brings us to Fire Emblem Engage, which in my opinion has some of the weaker chapter names in the series. Just things like Seashore Travels, Retaking the Castle, Dark Emblem. Like, they're not really the most imaginative, but they do have one that I really like, Serenity in Ruin, as it's a chapter about returning to Flora Port and the kingdom of Alfred and Celine, and finding that all of the hounds are there burning everything to the ground and making everything unsafe. So yeah, Serenity is in ruin. It sounds really cool, and it's kind of a gut punch when you see that the place that you went to before and everything was fine and hunky-dory is now on fire. Because if there is anything that makes you feel as though things are wrong, setting it on fire is always a good place to start. And there you have it, my opinion on the best chapter title for every Fire Emblem game. Do they make a lot of sense? Only sometimes. Is this list based more off of vibes than actual reasoning? You bet your ass. But I hope I will see you in the next video, where I look at all 500 of my Let's Play episodes and decide my best chapter title names. The best one could be anything. Or probably one of the 81 fucking Vestoria Saga episodes, who knows. Before this video ends, I would like to give a huge thank you to my patrons, who continue to give me money so I can blow it on dumb shit like eating Taco Bell 3 times a week. My patrons include the likes of Adebayo Thompson, Alex Aureliga, Amu is not beating the Tails allegations, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Benz again, Dr. McBackstab, Hell on Heelys, Justbacito 2, Larmachi, Lysevening Bolt, Lindis Mai Natsume Terumi, Susano the Divine Warrior, Kobo Kaneru, Lambda 11, and Takane Lu in a trench coat. As soon as I got used to the first one, they made a new long name. Marth War Criminal, Morga Lorgan, Played Arrow, Plaid is pronounced like the pattern, Ranger Man Sam, Shen Lu, Viri the Artist, Walmart Greeter, Yugirl Olwyn, Brentendo 11, Drew Hack, Fire Emblem Lord, Ginger, Gugu and Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Inverse, Lev Maverick, Maple Knight, and Upscale Furry Trash. Thank you all for your continued support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.